So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks Plug and Play for the invite. It's wonderful to be here in beautiful Italy, enjoying the sun. So today, what I would like to do is introduce you to CELUS. And indeed, we have been a little bit further ahead in our growing curve. I think in 2019, Plug and Play joined our investment pool. And since then, we have created a market-ready product. We have right now a team of 30 people, and we have some real traction in the market. And I'm really happy to give you some examples of that and to basically kind of show you what we're doing. So what we do, CELUS is a pioneer in automating electronics development. And we've heard the colleagues from STMicro and from Marelli talk about the megatrends that we have in the industry. Megatrends that you see everywhere. These were just examples from the automotive industry, right? But IoT is everywhere. The case study that I will mention is on the industrial front. But the theme is always the same. An old industry now meets digitization. And digitization meets electronics. And electronics is hard. And the bad news for you guys, it's getting harder. The reason for that is very simple. Complexity is increasing. We all know about component scarcity. Ask the gentleman from STMicro. I think he can tell you, he can spend the rest of the day talking about that. Which means that component life cycles go down. We get more variations on hardware design. And engineers can actually develop software. I graduated in '98 and I did analog hardware design. I was probably one of the last guys from university that did that. All the customers that we talk to in the hardware development space are older than I am. That's the reality that we have today. So we see an increasing trend in complexity, we see an increasing demand, and we see fewer people that actually can do the job. And this is nothing new. On the software development, this already happened 30 years ago. And the response from the software market was that they started to develop code generators. Software developers today don't write machine code anymore. They use high-level software to quickly come to programming, to come to working code. Chip design, another great example. Nobody is drawing trillions of transistors on a piece of silicon anymore. That's what we did in the 50s. These days, we use high-level chip designer tools to basically create building blocks and to reuse those building blocks in hardware design. But so far, nobody did that for PCB development, for the printed circuit board that is even inside this little thingy that I have in my hand to flip the slides. So this is kind of a typical example of how a hardware development process looks like. It typically starts with an idea. Somebody has an idea, typically a customer that comes to Marelli and says, you know what, we want you to develop a new ECU for us. And that ECU has certain requirements and it has certain functionality. And very quickly in that conversation, a system architect is being pulled into the dialogue and is starting with high-level blocks. I need to have sensors, I need to have a microprocessor, I need to have an analog input, I need to have a digital output, and maybe a CAN bus. And once the system architecture is done with that, then the poor hardware engineer comes in and he can then start searching the websites and look for data sheets, again, from companies like STMicro. But there's many of them, and those documents are very, very long. I've met many, many hardware engineers in my life, and again, I'm one of them. I've never had any pleasure reading data sheets. You get bored after page 3, knowing that you have to go through another 97 of them. You don't want to do that. The cool stuff actually starts when you have done all that stuff, and you can really start adding the magic to the circuit. You can really start driving value into the schematics build and into the PCB layout. But that only happens very late in the process, and before you get that, you have built your way through all these data sheets and get frustrated because you get these obsolescence notifications of exactly the part that you thought you're going to use. Well, we said, okay, that process is not going to scale. And basically what we do with our software is we take the input requirements from the system architect, from the customer, we listen to the customer, say, high level, okay, you want to build this product, you want to have a sensor, okay, let's drag in that sensor into the schematic. let's drag in the LED, let's drag in the CAN bus or the Bluetooth interface or whatever you want to have. And our compiler works through a library of components, picks the right components based on that functionality requirement, and spits out, not in months or weeks, but in maybe an hour, a full schematic drawing, and if you want, also a PCB prototype. I wouldn't claim that our PCB designs can go straight to production. There's a lot of magic and there's a lot of knowledge in PCB design. So we say it's kind of the 70% mark. You know, it's like running the marathon and you can start at the 32-kilometer point rather than having to start at the very first beginning. That makes a hell of a difference. And that's exactly what we do. So now you may ask, okay, that's great. So you have a compiler and that compiler goes to a library and that library is full with components. Well, how do you do that? And that was actually the big question when we started this company. We had the software, we had the compiler, we knew how to do it, but how the hell do you get content in the library? And that's the big update for today. We just closed a 7-digit deal with the second largest distributor in the world. Not for them to sell our components, but for us together to build a lead generation system for them. So together we built a lead generation system that will go on their website, that will be powered by CELUS, and they inject all the components that are relevant. We'll have 2 million components by the end of this year. We'll have 15,000 reference designs in the system. We'll have thousands of design templates. If you want to build a drone, go to that tool, tell the tool, I want to build a drone, and 15 minutes later, you pretty much have your drone. Not hours, not weeks, just a couple of minutes. And that's kind of how this marketplace is starting to come together. So you see a big tick box there in the distribution part, right? The distributor deal is done. We're happy with that. We're now moving on. The second part is where we already have very good traction, large engineering companies. Companies like the Viessmanns, like the Marellis, those are the companies that we're now talking to that are signing up with us. Also in parallel, and that is picking up good steam now, are the component partners, because we don't want to be just reliant on the distributor to give us the content. We want to work with the STMicros to basically help us fill that library, get the content in, because ultimately what we do is we connect demand and content together. That's what we do in our marketplace. And then ultimately in that marketplace, that is where companies meet that really need this capability moving forward. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share. I saw Enrico already looking at his watch, so I guess I spent more time. I'm sorry for that. It was a pleasure to have you here. And again, my name is on the screen. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to talk to you. Thank you very much.